Kai was Leo's most trusted operative, a living weapon forged for one purpose. The old patriarch's health was failing. Only 2 sons remained to claim his empire. Leo was the designated heir. Julian was his younger, supposedly fragile brother. Julian's perceived weakness did not stop his political maneuvering. Leo's frustration grew daily within his private penthouse. He decided his brother had to be removed. He summoned Kai, his voice strained with desperation. He explained that Julian was a constant obstacle. He needed the problem to disappear permanently. Kai understood the unspoken command. A few days later, a formal gala was held. The patriarch, frail and medicated, made a brief appearance. He left early, clearly exhausted. Leo used the opportunity to detain his brother. Julian coughed lightly into a silk handkerchief. His eyes seemed watery and weak. He stated that he could not refuse his dear brother's request. Kai faded into the shadows behind Leo. Late that night, Kai scaled the wall of the government building. He moved across the rooftop like a ghost. He slipped a tile loose and peered inside. Julian was lying quietly on the bed. A single candle flickered on a nearby table. The security here was weaker than at Julian's private estate. Kai easily neutralized the guard at the door. He entered the chamber without a sound. The sleeping man seemed to be having a pleasant dream. A slight smile played on his lips. Kai narrowed his eyes, his purpose clear. A silver blade appeared in his hand. He moved with cold precision. He aimed for Julian's heart. The knife plunged downward. It stopped an inch from its target. The man below suddenly gripped Kai's wrist. His eyes were wide open in the gloom. He whispered that he had been waiting. Before Kai could react, he was flipped onto his back. The knife was gone, lost in the struggle. Julian straddled him, his expression playful. He casually removed Kai's mask. He studied Kai's face with intense curiosity. Kai snarled and tried to attack. Julian caught his hands with ease. Kai struggled but could not break the grip. The rumors of Julian's frailty were lies. The man holding him down was immensely strong. Julian informed him that disobedience would have consequences. A sudden, unfamiliar heat spread through Kai's body. It was a potent, disorienting sensation. He was a trained operative. He recognized the effects of a neurotoxin. He glared at Julian, realizing the depth of the trap. Julian released Kai's hands as his body went limp. He said he preferred a fiery spirit, but not at that moment. Julian's gaze felt like a physical touch. Kai tried to pull away from his embrace. A strong arm tightened around his waist. Julian placed a soft kiss on his cheek. He murmured that Kai was beautiful. Kai clutched the sheets, fighting the drug's effects. He bit his lip to stifle any sound. A finger was gently forced between his lips. He gasped, a small sound escaping. The night became a blur of sensation. He only remembered one clear thought. He vowed to find whoever started the rumors about Julian's health. Kai had never slept so late. He awoke wanting only to report back to Leo. He tried to sit up but collapsed back onto the bed. His body was sore and unresponsive. Julian appeared, drawing back the bed curtains with a smile. He scooped Kai into his arms. Kai's mission resurfaced in his mind. He tried to strike Julian again. A gentle tap on his lower back made him go limp. He realized this was not just a drug. It was something more complex, a controlled agent. Julian did not deny it. He tilted Kai's chin up. He gently massaged Kai's aching back. Then he kissed him deeply. Kai was left breathless and dizzy. When Julian finally pulled away, he smoothed Kai's swollen lips. He commented that Kai fought like a cornered cat. Powerless, Kai could only glare. Julian seemed immensely pleased. He told Kai to return to Leo. He would not provide the antidote. Kai had to return once a week. Kai didn't want to hear anymore. He dressed and left. He reported his failure to Leo. Leo's face crumpled in despair. He cried that if Kai failed, there was no hope. Kai knelt, taking full blame. He added that the rumors of Julian's condition were false. Leo's eyes lit up with a new idea. Kai confirmed Julian's surprising strength. Leo considered this information carefully. He walked over to Kai. He whispered that he had a new plan. Kai did not understand strategy. He only followed orders. 7 days later, Kai wore a new costume. Leo had provided a dancer's outfit of silk and silver bells. The slightest movement created a delicate chiming sound. The high slits in the skirt revealed his pale legs. Too much skin was exposed. Kai felt deeply uncomfortable. Leo circled him, admiring the effect. He noted that something was missing. He added padding to Kai's chest. Then he was finally satisfied. He muttered about ensnaring Julian. Kai was delivered to Julian's suite. The air was thick with the scent of medication. Julian was finishing a dark liquid. He looked up, his eyes cold. He told Kai to get out. Kai could not leave. His orders were clear. He walked toward Julian. As if to maintain his persona, Julian began to cough. Kai approached with a dancer's fluid grace. The familiar heat suddenly returned, amplified. His body trembled. He fell into Julian's arms. A hand wrapped around his waist. Julian lifted the veil from his face. A slow smile spread across his lips. He inhaled the scent from Kai's shoulder. He commented on the pleasant fragrance. Kai could not speak. He felt more vulnerable than he ever had before. Julian wiped a tear from Kai's eye. He thanked his nephew for such a wonderful gift. Kai then remembered the weekly dose. Exactly 1 week had passed. The thin silk offered no resistance. Kai gasped for air, grabbing Julian's hand. Julian raised an eyebrow, surprised by the resistance. He asked if Kai had any last words. Kai fought the toxin's influence. He struggled to speak. He said he did this only for Leo. If Julian harmed Leo, he would not be forgiven. The man above him paused. Then a smile touched his lips. He leaned close to Kai's ear. He whispered that for this, he might let Leo have the throne. Then he silenced Kai with another kiss. An entire month in training was less taxing than one night with Julian. When Kai awoke, the other side of the bed was cold. A set of simple blue clothes was left for him. He changed and hurried back to Leo's compound. He arrived as Leo returned from a morning meeting. He noticed Leo was not scowling for once. He knelt before his master. Leo was ecstatic. He pulled Kai to his feet. He said that Julian had actually taken an interest in him. At the meeting, Julian had not challenged him. He had even praised him before their advisors. Kai's body still ached, but seeing Leo's smile made it feel worthwhile. So he smiled too. After his excitement faded, Leo grew serious. He decided seduction was not a long-term solution. He needed another way. Kai returned to his quarters and changed into civilian clothes. Operatives like him rarely showed their faces. He had only been unmasked for Leo and for Julian. He stood before the city's most exclusive private club. The decadent scents drifting from inside made him blush. Steeling himself, he walked in. He handed the host a silver coin. He requested their most skilled escort. The woman who approached moved with practiced elegance. Kai motioned for her to sit. He wanted to learn how to truly captivate someone. The escort was surprised by the strange request, but she answered all his questions. Kai listened intently. He studied her subtle movements. Suddenly, she stopped. Her eyes filled with panic. Kai felt a presence behind him. A familiar arm wrapped around his waist. The scent of medicinal herbs filled the air. Julian's voice was low and amused. He asked if Kai needed him to test the results. Kai tried to pull away, relying on Julian's public persona. He did not expect Julian's own guards to intervene. They stepped forward and restrained him. Julian sat beside him. He waved a hand and told them to find Leo. Kai's heart sank. Leo would be ruined if found in such a place. Without thinking, Kai struck the guards. He subdued them in seconds. He moved behind Julian. The cool steel of a hidden knife pressed against his back. He warned Julian not to involve Leo. Julian turned his head, a hint of surprise in his eyes. He sighed after a moment of hesitation. He told his men to stand down. As he left with his entourage, he left a parting shot. He had a gift for Kai. Kai scoffed at the idea. Back in his room, he found a black bag on his bed. He opened it. He blushed with anger and shoved the cloth gift under his bed. Within 2 days, rumors spread through the political circles. They spoke of Leo frequenting exclusive clubs. Julian was treacherous and cunning. Leo was reprimanded harshly by the patriarch. Important duties were reassigned to Julian. Kai stood by Leo's side. He seethed with a desire for revenge. The toxin in his body flared up at night. The itching became unbearable. Seeing Leo's growing agitation, Kai made a choice. He told Leo to leave it to him. The security at Julian's residence was formidable as always. This time, Kai was escorted inside. Julian was in his study working. He barely glanced up when Kai entered. He asked what business the operative had. Kai knew Julian was still angry about the club. He took a deep breath. He removed the blue robe Julian had given him. Julian stopped writing. Kai walked toward him, mimicking the escort's movements. He asked Julian to inspect his progress. Julian's anger was palpable. His actions were rougher than before. He bound Kai's hands. He forced tears from Kai's eyes. He made Kai call him his lord. Only when Kai was about to pass out did he stop. He kissed Kai's cheek affectionately. His gaze seemed to hold a strange tenderness. He said the results were good, but more practice was needed. The next morning, the bed was empty as usual. As Kai prepared to leave, a maid stopped him. She smiled and insisted he stay. He was forced to recover at Julian's residence for 2 days. When he returned, Leo was smiling. He was writing something in his study. He seemed embarrassed to see Kai. He apologized for what Kai had endured. Kai shook his head, saying it was nothing. Leo excitedly shared some good news. The duties Julian had taken had been mishandled. Several projects had failed. The patriarch had stripped Julian of those responsibilities. Kai remained silent. Everything had seemed normal at Julian's home. The maid who saw him out even gave him a bag of his favorite snacks. He wondered how she knew what he liked. Life continued. Kai guarded Leo. Julian's political power seemed to wane. He became much more low-key. Apart from finding snacks on his bed and anonymous notes, Kai had no contact with him. The Mid-Autumn Festival arrived. The scent of honeysuckle filled the city. An invitation from Julian arrived for Leo. Reading it, Leo's face turned red with anger. Kai followed him to Julian's estate, confused. A familiar maid greeted them at the door. She asked Kai to follow her. He started to refuse. He saw Leo hurrying away. Leo told him to distract Julian and keep him away. Kai had no choice. He followed the maid to a garden. A familiar figure sat under a large oak tree. Julian wore loose robes. His long hair was tied back simply. Thinking of recent events, Kai approached him. He asked hesitantly if Julian had been having a difficult time. A flicker of surprise crossed Julian's face. He thought Kai would ask about Leo. Kai sat beside him, He took a piece of cake from the table. He said it was just a casual question. Julian smiled faintly. He explained that Leo was with his favorite escort. He then asked if Kai knew why he was summoned. Kai was puzzled. It was not time for his weekly dose. In fact, he hadn't felt the toxin's effects last week. Sharing a drink was for friends. He did not see Julian that way. Julian looked exasperated. He muttered something under his breath. He poured Kai a glass of wine. An operative should be able to hold his liquor. Kai drank it in one go. Julian raised his eyebrows. He asked if Kai wasn't afraid of poison. Kai's expression changed. He prepared to use his internal energy to expel the wine. Julian spoke again. He said it made his efforts worthwhile. He explained his new apprentice no longer saw him as an enemy. The light-hearted tone felt strange. Kai considered his words. He was new to this household. He was male. He was less guarded. It was all true, so he nodded. Julian watched him for a long time. Then he sighed. The wine was stronger than anything Kai had ever tasted. The world began to swim before his eyes. He pinched himself, trying to stay alert. He had to protect Leo. Julian seemed to read his thoughts again. He remarked that Kai was still fixated on Leo. He mentioned a new infrastructure project. He was supposed to oversee it with Leo. Now he thought he might cancel. He would not disturb Leo's private affairs. Julian turned to leave. Kai instinctively grabbed his sleeve. He said the project was important to Leo. Such a great opportunity could not be wasted. He held Julian's hand. He looked up and blinked slowly. The moon was high in the sky. Kai followed Leo's car, his face flushed. Julian was insatiable. Every encounter was the same. As Julian finally released him, he bit Kai's shoulder. Kai bit his lip, his eyes full of accusation. Julian offered his own shoulder. He said if Kai was unhappy, he could bite back. Kai pushed him away. He asked who would enjoy that more. Julian just laughed. The benefits were substantial. At the next council meeting, the patriarch announced the joint project. Leo and Julian would oversee it together. Before their departure, Leo spent all his time with his escort. Kai spent his days in the training facility. He honed his skills to protect his master. On the day of departure, Kai hid in the shadows. He waited to join the convoy outside the city. A flash of white appeared beside him. A pair of warm hands pulled him into an embrace. Julian complained that Kai had not visited. He worried they were growing distant. Kai knew who it was without looking. Julian maintained his frail persona for everyone else. With Kai, he dropped the act. He hung a small, heavy locket around Kai's neck. Then he was gone. Kai thought nothing of it. This trip would become the turning point of his life. The journey south was suspiciously smooth. It was Kai's first time observing Leo and Julian together. Julian still looked sickly, but his sharp words always silenced Leo. Leo was constantly agitated. Kai could not stand it. He slipped into Julian's tent one night. He suggested Julian use a kinder tone with Leo. Julian was about to sleep. The drowsiness vanished from his eyes. He thought Kai had come for him, but all Kai spoke of was Leo. Kai blushed slightly. He said Julian did not need his concern. Julian insisted that a sick man needed care, especially from Kai. He crossed his arms and huffed. Fearing he would wake Leo, Kai relented. He asked what Julian wanted. Julian's eyes brightened. He got into bed and patted the space beside him. He wanted Kai to lull him to sleep. He was not allowed to leave until Julian was asleep. Kai had only ever known how to kill. He did not know how to soothe. He recalled a distant memory. When he was a child, the head trainer would hold him. He would gently pat his back after a hard day. Kai copied the motion. Julian settled into his arms. Kai patted his back gently. He listened to Julian's breathing grow steady. In the dark tent, there were only two sounds: the soft padding and their two heartbeats. Kai looked at the perfect face in his arms. His own heart began to beat faster. He tried to suppress the feeling, but Julian's heart was also beating quickly. The route took them through a vast mountain range. They avoided the deepest parts of the wilderness. One mountain, however, was unavoidable. They restocked supplies in a nearby village. Then the convoy entered the forest. The atmosphere in the group grew tense. Only Leo seemed oblivious, writing letters to his escort. Around noon, the convoy stopped for a rest. Kai hid in the bushes near Leo. He scanned the surroundings carefully. Suddenly, an arrow struck the lead driver. Assassins. Kai instantly appeared by Leo's side. He pulled him behind a tree for cover. Leo trembled behind him. He stammered, asking what was happening. Kai ignored him, his focus on the threat. He scanned the chaos for Julian. He asked Leo if he had seen his brother. Leo said Julian had left the vehicle as soon as they stopped. He had wandered off somewhere. Kai felt a deep unease. Julian's security was far superior to Leo's. But with assassins here, Julian could be in danger. There was no time to think. More attackers flooded the area. Kai had to get Leo away. He heard the assassins searching. They were looking for a tiger seal. He thought of the locket Julian had given him. He glanced down. The silver locket swung at his waist. The assassins were after both of them. They quickly noticed Leo was gone. A group broke off in pursuit. Kai could not imagine who would target both brothers. He heard rustling nearby. He and Leo were surrounded. He gripped his sword, his expression grim. He had to hold them off until reinforcements arrived. More footsteps approached. There was no more time. He charged, dispatching the nearest enemies. Then he threw Leo over his shoulder. He ran deeper into the mountains. The landscape blurred past him. The wind roared in his ears. He could hear his own ragged breathing. The footsteps behind him never faded. He could only push forward. A sharp whistling sound cut through the air. Kai's pupils contracted. He spun, shielding Leo with his own body. The expected pain never came. He heard a second whistle. Then the thud of something hitting a tree. Leo looked up from Kai's arms. He asked what happened. Kai slowly turned around. The ground was littered with the bodies of assassins. A short distance away, Julian held a composite bow. He looked at the dead men with cold indifference. An arrow was deeply embedded in a nearby tree. On the ground lay another arrow snapped in two. Leo let out a small gasp. He whispered that he finally believed Kai. Julian was no invalid. He was a general. Relief washed over Kai. He nodded his thanks to Julian. Julian walked toward him, a warm smile on his face. He said he had missed Kai. Kai stared at him, stunned. His heart felt as if it had been struck by Julian's arrow. It beat wildly in his chest. After a short rest, they continued deeper into the forest. Julian led the way. He was dressed in white, looking serene. He seemed like a tourist, not a man who was just hunted. Kai mentally added him to his protection list. The incident had lessened Leo's animosity. He was now able to talk to Julian. He asked who would want to kill them both. He said if he survived, he needed his escort to comfort him. Julian glanced back at Leo. His expression was one of pity. He asked Leo what he did all day. Leo glared at him. Kai, walking behind them, spoke up for Leo. He admitted he did not know either. Julian stopped walking. Kai bumped into his back. The next moment, Julian secretly took his hand. He tilted his head towards Kai. He said if Kai wanted to know, he would tell him everything. Could only be the old patriarch. Julian sneered. He said their father had raised Leo to be a fool. He himself had feigned illness for years. Yet the old man still would not let them be. Hearing this secret shocked Kai. He forgot his hand was still in Julian's. Leo was also speechless. Julian continued. The patriarch was dying yet paranoid. He wanted to see his wish of their demise fulfilled. A sound came from the nearby woods. Kai instinctively pulled his hand back. He moved to shield Leo. Then he remembered Julian. He turned to pull Julian behind him. But Julian was already in front of him. He stood with his back to Kai. His voice was clear and firm. He said Kai could always protect his prince. But he would always protect Kai. Something exploded in Kai's chest. It was like fireworks or a drumbeat against his heart. He did not know what the feeling was. His sword moved faster. His mind kept replaying Julian's gaze. It was usually light and teasing, but when it landed on him, it was deep and intoxicating. Leo had said Kai seduced Julian, but perhaps it was the other way around. The remaining assassins were quickly dispatched. After a rest, Kai saw Julian meticulously cleaning his blade. Looking at him, Kai's face grew warm. He scolded himself for being so easily swayed. He settled Leo down. Then he walked over to Julian. Julian sheathed his sword. He looked at Kai with a hint of surprise. Kai, his face still flushed, spoke nervously. He asked if Julian could come with him. Julian raised an eyebrow and agreed. They walked until the others were out of earshot. Kai stopped. He looked up and met Julian's eyes. His face burned again. Julian was clearly in a good mood. He teased Kai about being brought to a secluded spot. His heart pounded. He tried to calm himself. When he failed, he gave up. He pulled a few leaves from a branch. He said that when Leo spoke of his escort, he changed. He never understood that emotion before, but recently he thought he did. He looked directly into Julian's eyes. He hoped his feelings would be understood. He said if wanting to be with someone always is love, then he loved Julian. He wanted to be with him, doing everything together. He knew his skills might not be better, but he would still protect Julian with all his strength. Julian would be more important to him than Leo. After his long speech, he licked his lips nervously. He watched Julian for a reaction. Julian had never heard him speak so much at once. He stood frozen. Seeing his silence, Kai's eyes fluttered. He looked down, awaiting judgment. The man before him sighed. He stepped forward. Then Kai was pulled into a familiar embrace. Julian whispered that he thought he would have to wait much longer. Kai wrapped his arms around Julian's waist. He buried his hot face in Julian's chest. Julian gently pinched his earlobe. He sighed again, saying Kai had beaten him to it. It was a miscalculation. Kai thought for a moment. He looked up, worried. He asked if the location was not good enough for a confession. Julian's lips curved upwards. He said Kai's willingness to share his heart was enough. Kai fell silent, hiding his face again. The air around them felt joyful. It was a better feeling than his favorite snack. He glanced at the branch he had stripped. He quickly looked away. Kai, Julian had been about to speak. As Kai turned his head, their lips met. Kai's eyes widened in shock. Julian's eyes curved into crescents. He did not deepen the kiss. He just gave a few light pecks. He said they couldn't do more here. But back home, he would satisfy Kai completely. Kai's ears turned crimson. He gently pushed Julian away. He argued that it was an accident. Julian hummed in disbelief. Kai did not know how to explain. He assumed Julian was just teasing him as usual. So he said nothing more. Julian chuckled softly. He took Kai's hand. He said they had to finish their business first. They were not far from the original camp. Leo saw them return, walking slowly. He looked at Kai first, relieved he was safe. Then his gaze shifted to their joined hands. The next moment, Leo shot up from the ground. He pointed at Kai, then at Julian. His mouth was wide enough to fit an egg. Julian ignored him. He led Kai back to the group. He raised their clasped hands. He announced the future empress. Leo was too stunned to process the loss of his throne. He began to tremble. He shrieked in terror. He asked if Kai was abandoning him. Deep-seated habit made Kai want to pull his hand away. Julian held it firm. He glared at Leo. He asked how old he was. He said Kai was not his nanny. Kai looked at Leo, then at Julian, torn. Julian squeezed his side impatiently. He asked if he was not more important than Leo. He questioned why Kai was so eager to run to him. Kai tugged Julian's sleeve. He mumbled that he was just not used to it. He asked Julian not to be angry. Julian paused, then sighed. He said they would take it slow. He scanned the area. He announced that he and Kai would return to the capital. Leo would continue south with the commander. He had already briefed him on everything. After giving his orders, Julian sped off towards the capital, pulling Kai along. Behind them, Leo's echoing roar could be heard. He screamed for them not to take Kai. He also yelled, asking why Julian knew his chief operative. Kai was also curious. Julian's mind-reading ability activated again. He said the idiot prince finally asked a good question. He stated cheerfully that Kai was practically his child bride. 20 years ago, Julian found an abandoned infant. It was in the slums of the capital. The patriarch had just taken power. All his brothers were dead except Julian. He was the youngest, the least threatening. But spies in his household grew more numerous. Julian had to send the child away. He sent him to Leo's compound, to his trusted man. Through occasional messages, Julian learned about the child. He received sketches, lists of favorite snacks, and preferred colors. He named him Kai. When Kai was a little older, Julian went to see him secretly. The small boy was surprisingly popular in the harsh training camp. Leo had already chosen him as a confidant. Julian always felt it was unfair. He had found the beautiful child. Yet the boy was a stranger to him. Because of Leo, he could feel Kai disliked him. But time was long. He knew he would have his chance. Everything became clear. No wonder Julian always seemed to know him so well. He asked about the toxin. Julian laughed. He said he would never use a real toxin on him. He had his contact place a mild drug in Kai's clothes. They returned to the village where they had resupplied. A large contingent of well-equipped soldiers was waiting. They traveled day and night. The patriarch was on his deathbed. Julian showed no mercy. He forced him to sign over the succession. The old man died of rage. Kai calculated the dates. Leo would be back from the south around the coronation day. After announcing the transfer of power, Julian took Kai to his estate. The garden oaks were losing their leaves. It was a bit sad. Thinking back to that day, Kai understood Julian's meaning. He looked at Julian. He said that technically he was not the first to confess. Julian obviously remembered. He lamented that a certain young man did not understand him then. Kai used an old trick. He tugged Julian's sleeve. He promised to try harder to understand him in the future. He mimicked Leo's fawning over his escort. He hugged Julian and kissed his cheek. Julian's breathing became heavy. He had not known Kai could be even more alluring after their confession. He swept Kai into his arms. He strode quickly toward the bedroom. He could not wait another moment. Knowing what was coming, Kai blushed. He gently bit Julian's earlobe. He whispered for his lord to be gentle.